All right. So in theory, we're live.
Hey everybody.
Are we?
Hello, all. In theory, that's what
Theory.
Streamlabs says, and it says live on Twitch. So
And I'm hearing myself twice, so
Nice.
Why hear yourself though, nerd?
I don't know. I try not to listen to myself.
welcome back to the Lost Ledgers, brought to you by Shawn.
ESPN. Oh,
Yeah,
Wait,
ESPN. You think ESPN would sponsor Dead Bard Society, a D&D homebrew channel?
I
they're
mean,
gonna have to
they,
eventually.
they used to have Magic the Gathering on ESPN too.
Do you think they'd ever have
Oh, yeah.
AL on ESPN?
Probably not. They don't even
All
have
right.
Magic anymore.
Below me is Justin.
Hello.
Below that is Adam.
Hey.
Water. Fuck.
And at the bottom is Zach.
Why
Bottom
are you talking? Why are you talking over my introduction, dude?
Why are you talking
Sorry.
over Zach's introduction?
I didn't. I waited until Shawn finished.
I don't know.
Doing great.
I heard both you talking at the same time.
How's your guys' week doing?
I'm feeling all right. I'm doing good.
That's going good.
Long and tired. I had to work an
Hey.
extra day this week.
Oh, fuck. That sounds awful.
Mhm.
Just working an extra week. I guess overtime, right?
Overtime.
Well,
Oh,
everything
no,
good?
go ahead. I don't have the thing open up. As long as I'm
Okay.
not first, we're good.
You're
You
not.
you aren't. I am.
So, this week, we had decided that we were going to open up our restrictions. We've been doing kind of more and more narrow ideas, and we're like, what if we just go back to some classics? So this week, we're just revisiting good old legendary items. Just nice, strong, fun, magical items. And I think that was pretty refreshing. I don't know
It definitely
how it felt
was.
to you guys. I see Adam brought two things. And I know Justin's thing is super long. So seems like we had
It
some
is.
motivation this week.
Yeah. Woo.
Woo!
All
Hear
right.
that enthusiasm.
Whew.
Up on the screen right now, we do have Adam's two legendary items. One of them, words count way more than the other. He did say in the chat that he believes he may have written the shortest description for a legendary item, but then was disappointed to find out that he had it.
I
But,
think this still might be the shortest description for a legendary item with attunement.
Oh. We'll have to. Someone in the chat will have to check that first because I don't feel like doing it.
Yeah, that's fair.
What do we have here, Adam?
All right. First up, we have the Crown of the Barrow Queen. It's a wondrous item. It's legendary, and it requires attunement. This isn't the short one. A twisted, rough-hewn crown of ivory and bone with thin veins of cold iron. This crown is suffused with the chill of death and imparts the power of the Barrow Queen on those who deign to wear her crown. While wearing the crown, you have immunity to necrotic damage, your attacks and spells ignore resistance to necrotic damage, and you gain temporary hit points equal to your level whenever you finish a long rest. Furthermore, whenever damage reduces you to 0 hit points, make a Constitution saving throw with DC equal to 5 plus half the damage taken, unless the damage is radiant or from a critical hit. If you succeed, you drop to 1 hit point instead. Furthermore, the crown has 4 charges for casting spells. Spell save DC 19. You can cast Dominate Monster from the crown targeting an undead by spending 2 charges, or Summon Undead by spending 1 charge. The crown regains 1d4 charges each dawn. While wearing the crown, you can cast Speak with Dead at will.
Ooh. A lot of undeath going on. What are any words on this one, Adam?
I realized after I made this that this would have fit in a couple weeks ago when we were doing creature type themed items.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay.
One
Well,
too.
that's the thing. I
Yeah.
feel like this would have been really cool, and I didn't come up with it at the time. But so the thing that I spent the longest worrying about was how many charges an 8th level spell with a severe targeting restriction is worth. So Dominate Beast is 4th level, Dominate Person is 5th, Dominate Monster is 8th. I treated this as about the same power level as Dominate Person in my math. So
I mean, Dominate Person is a creature type specific, so it kind of matches up.
right, yeah. Undead I felt like was a better creature type to have dominion over than beasts. as we were complaining a few weeks ago about Dominate Beast, even
yeah.
being a 4th level spell. So I thought Dominate Undead would, that's kind of appropriate as a 5th level spell, which I'd been talking about just making the spell Dominate Undead, but for this item, it was cleaner to just say Dominate Monster, but only targeting Undead.
Yeah, I'm inclined
to... what were you inclined to say?
I'd be inclined there as well. I think high level undead are about probably as frequent as high level humanoids. So,
right, yeah.
And obviously there are no high level beasts.
Right. The other big thing that I did is for the Undead Fortitude ability, which went unnamed here, I changed it to 5 plus half the damage taken to make it a little bit better for players.
Right.
Because players are generally going to be taking more damage than monsters are.
Why didn't you just go with half damage? Why the +5?
So that it's a remote possibility of failure, even if you take low amounts of damage.
Okay. So
similar to the idea with concentration checks, where it's half the damage, minimum 10. Honestly, that might be the way to do it. Half the damage, minimum 10. I was taking the language almost exactly from Undead Fortitude, and so the smallest change that I could make to be happy with it was making it 5 plus half instead of 5 plus the damage.
I dig it.
So I really like it. I think maybe the summon undead could be it could say that it's cast at 5th level, because casting this as is from as a 3rd level spell at the level that range that you're getting this items
probably have better things to concentrate on.
You have much better things to concentrate on. That thing is gonna die in 1 hit.
Actually, so let me run this by you. What this originally let you do instead of summon undead was cast create undead. But I know that one create undead has a lot of people trying to cheese it in terms of what's the maximum number of undead that I can make and have following me at any given time. And 4 free castings of that every day. I mean, it's not 4 every day because it's D4, but D4 casts of that every day for free, I thought might make that a little too easy to cheese. But on the other hand, even with maximum cheese, the undead that it makes aren't very good. They're mostly just meat shields.
Yeah, I think it says ghouls for the corpses.
Right, so ghouls are CR2, I think.
Yeah.
But you need to reassert control every 24 hours. So this isn't really adding that much more to create undead spam versus the already very good Sorelock thing where you turn all of your sorcery points into spell slots to cast create undead at maximum level. I don't know. I thought that summon undead was less cheesable. I'd totally be fine with saying that you cast it at 4th or maybe even 5th level. I might change the charge numbers in that case.
I think maybe even making a cast at a higher level, because you don't get much for.
I think 5th level would be pretty good.
Well, it's important to note that the AC of the creature depends on the spell level
and the health.
Yeah, well, so its survivability goes up significantly with spell levels.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think, but again, at this level, you have a lot more things that you're gonna be concentrating on, unless you're something like a fighter.
Well, that's the thing. This doesn't require attunement from a caster, so you might not have spells at all. So maybe Summon Undead is the only thing you want to concentrate on.
Plus, one really nice thing, especially with the summon spells, is that a lot of them have costly material components, and this gets rid of that.
Right.
Does casting a spell from Magic Item get rid of the costly material components for casting the spell?
It bypasses all components.
Oh, really? So it doesn't have VSM? It's just straight.
I thought
believe so.
it had to specify. Because I feel like some do specify. So I'm not sure.
This is a good question.
This is a very
Yeah.
good question.
Let me look at Chapter 10, spellcasting.
It might be in the DMG for
Yes,
like
it
under
might be in
magic items.
items. I'm gonna check that real quick because this is very important. Because it's not something I've ever considered before. I've never actually cast many spells from magic items, honestly.
So, roughly what level would you say players should get like a legendary item?
tier 3 or 4.
Yeah, late tier 3, early tier 4. Honestly, yeah, probably like late tier 3, I think. So like 14th level.
Okay. I think given that casting this at 5th level would be fine because the AC of it is only 16. The HP of it is either 60 or 50 depending on what you summon. And then it makes 2 attacks with its multi-attack action.
If you summon it at what level?
If you summon it at 5th level.
Okay,
I think 5th level's
some magic items allow the user to cast a spell from the item. The spell is cast at the lowest possible spell level, doesn't expend any of the user's spell slots, and requires no components. So technically, you can't even counterspell a spell cast from a magic item.
interesting.
Pretty dope.
That's
cool.
Unless the
I
item's
think-
description says
yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah. So if no components, perfect. And I think 5th level is good. I don't think you need to change the charges, even if
Well-
it is at 5th level.
Well, so what I was going to do was equalize their costs then, because we were saying that Dominate Monster with an undead targeting restriction is probably about the power of a 5th level spell. And so if it's a choice between 2 5th level spells, they should take the same number of charges.
Yeah.
Right. I do think, though, that because it's a 3rd level spell cast up, I think, we've said before
It's-
in the podcast,
Yeah.
casting
That's
up is
not
usually-
as good, yeah.
And I think it's okay to have one charge, because another thing is that, like, both of these are concentration spells. So, like, it's not like they're going to be able to spam one or the other. And
Right.
Dominate Monster on a adversarial undead is probably more actually, it is more powerful than creating an undead, because it removes an enemy and gains you an ally at the same time.
That's true. Yeah, so the charges could probably stay the same then.
It would this would definitely be good against, I'd say, mid-tier undead. Like just before you start getting like coming into vampires and shit with legendary resistances. But I mean that's just
Well, the
Right, yeah,
summoning,
'cause-
sure, but the rest of this item, like what it does, is
the rest
really
of this
good.
item is really well balanced. I love having the undead fortitude feature in here.
That was the very last thing that I added to the item, because I was like, I feel like this needs just a little bit more, just a sprinkle more.
Speak with that at will. I think some people are going to have a problem with it because they'll just be like, "Oh yeah, well then my players are going to talk to everybody they kill." But at the same time, the corpse can just decide not to talk to them.
It can't actually.
It can't. I thought that. I thought
because
that.
you aren't actually communicating with like the soul of the creature. You are just you aren't even animating them. Like you are
Don't they keep
asking
their personality and stuff, though?
I don't believe that they do. I thought that was explicitly
Answers?
not the case.
Answers are usually brief, cryptic, or repetitive, and the corpse is under no compulsion to offer a truthful answer if you are hostile to it or it recognizes you as an enemy.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
being able to kill your like enemies and talk to them isn't
Yeah.
as helpful with the spell.
Yeah. Well, and okay, this spell doesn't return the creature's soul to its body, only its animating spirit. So, like, I don't know. That implies to me that
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily have the same personality it had in life.
That makes
Well, I think-
sense.
Yeah, but I think that's just going to be like is like people are going to
Well-
complain about like asking every single possible corpse that they can. But also, I think that's a fucking cool thing. I think that's an option. I think having that as an option, like at will.
Well,
It's a strong, like, it's an interesting, like, having a 3rd level spell at will is pretty interesting.
You know, there are some weird wordings in this. First of all, the animated spirit thing's strange, but the implication of they can recognize you as an enemy sort of feels like it could be teetering into like their memories and personality. Probably more
Right.
memories.
Yeah.
I
Well, that's
think
Anyway,
so
pretty open, like ended for you to kind of decide how you want to do it. Like when we did it in my campaign, and for how I would do it in general, they have like not really their personalities, but like they knew who they were as a person, but they're going to be more like ghostly about it. Is the best description I have.
Ghost.
Yeah, you're gonna be less attached.
Mhm.
right.
I would probably make anybody talk to with Speak with Dead like not quite as animated as that person was in life. Although you totally could, and that could be an interesting way that you play with the Speak with Dead.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Speak with Dead leaves a lot up to the DM and how they think an individual corpse is going to respond,
Yeah.
which I think is honestly fine. I think that's
Yeah.
good. Well,
I-
and if you think that Speak with Dead at will is too obnoxious,
Yeah.
you can totally change it to once per day.
No, I don't think it's obnoxious. I don't think it's cool.
obnoxious.
For the spell that it is, I think it's totally fine. Like just said, even if you do use this like to talk to people that you've killed, like if they recognize you right away, like
Right. Well, especially since, as Speak with Dead explicitly says, they're under no compulsion to answer you truthfully.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing that would possibly make this strong is if they like were like a warlock that had the disguise self at will or something like that, and they were able to change themselves into another person that you guys just saw and killed, that like you knew they trusted, and then you could get information from them. But even then, like you have to be particular about your questions and
Yeah. Yeah. it's
Right.
still-
And-
even though you're
and-
that's still a good like workaround about that, and maybe maybe DMs will rule like differently from that. Like maybe they'll rule that, oh no, this character saw you kill that other character. They know that character's dead.
Right.
Yeah,
well, and
yeah.
like,
you would have to be careful with it.
Yeah.
well, and since there's no, like, it explicitly says the corpse can't learn anything new. So,
Yeah.
like, that tells me that, like, the corpse doesn't really have its own senses. So, how is it recognizing you if it can't learn anything new? That implies to me that it's recognizing you based on, like, your soul, not like your physical form,
Yeah.
but like your presence.
Interesting. I don't get that from that.
Well, and I mean, like we said, Speak with Dead is kind of intentionally vague. But and actually, Speak with Dead already has anti-spam built into it because you can only target the same corpse once every 10 days.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So even if you are targeting every corpse that you've killed, like you can't do the same one over and over again, and
Yeah, unless you take the corpse with you.
Which I mean,
and
hey,
preserve it.
You don't actually need to preserve it, I don't think.
I mean, yeah, but like if it starts to get rotting, like
Well, that's the thing. If you want to preserve it, that's on you, but like it doesn't require mechanically that you preserve
true,
it.
true.
So I do have one question. How effective do you want Dominate Person to be against like high level undead?
I think it's fine. I think it's fine that it's not super effective against like the more intelligent undead. So like what are you driving at?
Dominate monster charms. They have to be charms.
Oh, and most undead are immune to it?
A lot of high level undead are. Not all of them. There are some pretty good high level undeads that aren't. But like a lich would be full on immune to this. For instance, a vampire is immune. Actually, no, vampire's not immune. I apologize.
I was gonna say I think a lich being immune to this effect is fine, but let me look at the list.
A vampire isn't, but a mummy lord is. How often are you running the mummy lords? So I mean, like, it's pick or choose. It would be the player. The player would probably have to get some reconnaissance if they want to figure out if it's worth doing this. The Skull Lord is immune to charm. Strahd is not actually. Strahd's not immune, which is pretty funny.
What about like check out the Death Tyrant? The Death Tyrant is immune.
Wait, what? Oh,
Yeah, the Death Tyrant is immune to charms.
Death Knight is not.
Yeah, there are some good undead that aren't, like the high level undead. I think low level undead generally.
actually, I
probably
mean,
fine.
things as low as the ghoul have charm immunity.
Well, the ghoul is like a kind of an exception because ghouls are like anti-elves almost, so it kind of makes sense. Like,
Well,
or not
Spectre,
anti-elves,
immune.
but like elves have like an anti thing. The Spectre's immune as well.
Spectre's immune. Poltergeist is immune.
Right, so
Um,
yeah, there's a lot
immune.
of
Banshee, Bone Naga, Flame Skull, Geist, Ghost, Spirit.
okay, so there's a lot that are immune low level then.
Oh,
Yo,
man.
Sounds like the low
Kodak
level
also
undeads are
is.
more often immune than the high level ones, which is kind of funny.
Lower intelligence just like droningly like can't be dissuaded
Hey,
differently
the death
from their
block's
goal.
not. But yeah, so that is one thing. Like, do you? I'm
Older
trying to think of
zombies
what
are.
this. I think the reason I brought that up is because I was looking at the DC. The DC is like very high end for legendary items. Legendary items are often DC 17, DC 18 for a few. 19 is in the higher, and I was like, that makes sense. And I thought maybe that was intentional because of the charm immunity thing.
It was originally going to be a lower DC, and the undead had like disadvantage on the save. But like the fact that so many of them are immune to it, I'm wondering if maybe there's a different spell that accomplishes what I want. Ah, man. This keeps happening to me. This happened to me a couple weeks ago with that construct item.
Well, then that brings it back to what your goal is. Do you want this to be effective based on its DC, or do you want this to be something? Because I mean, we could just ignore the charm condition. There's not anything wrong with that. Just like we did with your golem thing, your construct thing.
Yeah, I just
Not slow.
that to me feels like an inelegant solution. Like
Yeah, that's not quite
doesn't to me.
the MO of this item.
and
The construct one was the construct one was a little bit different because it was like meant to specifically do that. I felt like.
and honestly, the inciting idea for this crown was that it lets you gain control of undead. So like, I want this to work.
Yeah, I was like,
I
this
just
seems
want
like
to
the
decide. I want to
full-on
decide.
MO of this.
I need to decide how I want it to work.
Good morning, Hannah. Thanks for dropping by.
Welcome back to the world of the living.
So wait.
I don't think there is. You said it's inelegant. I feel like it's the most. Like, I don't know. Anything else that I could think of would be crunchier if you were like trying to find, besides finding a completely different spell altogether.
Yeah, I think that just overcoming the undead's charm immunity. How about this?
If they're charmed, their advantage, maybe.
I was gonna say that it overcomes immunity to the charm condition, but a creature that's immune to charm has advantage on the save.
And the high DC makes up for the fact
that's
that
what I was
so many of them are immune, especially low level ones.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's good.
Adam.
Yes.
This is the second crown you've made that's targeted to a specific creature type. Is this a line of crowns you're creating?
It wasn't intended to be. I just I feel like the construct one totally could have been a different item. I feel like this one needs to be a crown. To me, there is a link between the idea of a crown and like command. Like there is an idea of domination inherent in royalty that like I think that the crown for the dominate spell makes sense. The construct one could have been a different item. It could have been a bracelet or a necklace or something.
A ring.
All I know is that you now have to make a crown for every creature type. And then one crown that rules them all.
It was originally, the construct one was originally supposed to be like an elemental themed crown. So like maybe I will get there eventually. We'll see.
Elemental, you mean Azer?
Man, I really thought about doing an Azer item this week, but then I didn't.
Dude, just make Azers for all the other elements.
Don't give him ideas.
I consider
doing ideas.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I considered doing Bullywug, but it felt too low level to make legendary.
Any other comments on the crown before I move on to the very short item?
I'm a sucker for temp HP, so I love this.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised that the temp HP didn't draw any comment at all.
I think it's fun.
No, I think the first paragraph's all good, and I think the specificity of the spells at the bottom is something worth going over. The top just feels all flavorful and good.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. All right, so moving on to the Remorhaz leathers. These are light armor, and they're legendary, and they require attunement. While wearing this studded leather armor, you gain a +2 bonus to AC, and you are immune to fire and cold damage.
And that's it.
That's it. That's
All right,
all, folks.
That solves. You know what? That's pretty cool. Fits on. Fits with the Remorhaz as a creature.
The only thing that I really had to think about with this was what is the appropriate AC bonus? Because there already exists the Ifriti chain, which is chainmail that is +3 armor, gives you fire immunity, and then a couple of ribbons. And so clearly they think that attunement at the level of legendary is worth immunity to a common damage type plus a little bit.
Yeah.
Because a +3 weapon or a +3 armor is legendary non-attunement. And so I thought, okay, so +1 is probably worth immunity to a second damage type. So that's the calculus I went through, but I don't know. I could go down to +1 even, maybe, if you think that this is too good.
I'm always concerned about adding extra ACs to light and leather armor.
That's what I was gonna say. Is that the fact that since it's light armor means even more characters have the ability to this.
There's no max on decks for light armors.
Right, but I mean, like, any armor could be +3 armor. Like, you could find +3 studded leather. Like,
no, I agree.
It's
probably fine. It sets off an alarm in my head anytime I see light armor or something.
That's fair. And I originally had this as +1 to AC, but then I was looking at the Ifriti chain, and I was like, well, maybe this could be a +2.
I think it's fine.
I like it flavorfully. I think it's really cool flavorfully, especially the immunity to fire and cold. Strong. Definitely see why this is legendary if you're getting 2 immunities to damages.
That's the thing. 2 immunities to 2 of the more common damage types. Well, mostly fire. Cold is less common, but fire is very common.
I think this is an awesome item to like have in a campaign where like if they find out they can make this, then they have to like hunt Remorhazes to like get enough leather or something. Like
I agree. I think there's not enough items in the game for it's like it incentivizes like, hey, how can I go actively try to get this item? How could I go find some of the materials for it? And I think this right here, I mean, you just have somebody, a merchant or a leather worker that they come across. It's like, hey, I heard there's some Remorhaz in the Remorhaz is in the area. If you yeah, sorry, that's why I stopped talking for a second. If you go and hunt this for me, bring me back X amount of like stuff from it. I can make you this really cool leather set, and I'll do it for free because you're giving me a shit ton of excess stuff.
I am a big proponent of like adding a crafting system to 5e of some kind. I would be scared of letting them craft something this powerful.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think you could. I don't think I would let my players just like make this without a lot of money or effort or like because this is a legendary item.
For that reason alone, I was very skeptical to call this just Remorhaz leathers. I was originally thinking of a way to name it that would be like, it's more like Remorhaz inspired or Remorhaz adjacent, but like I couldn't deny the like very slick like one-to-one correspondence of no, you literally just made yourself a suit of armor out of this thing's skin.
Yeah, I think I would do
ancient Remorhaz aren't leathers. Giving it the implication that it's from Remorhaz way like from the past that could have been bigger. I don't know.
Or like perfect Remorhaz leathers. Like maybe there's lesser versions of this that's just like, it doesn't give you any bonuses, but it's resistance to fire and cold. Like
that would be really interesting to make this like a chain of items that.
Well, the way that I would do it, I would kind of have like crafters like very like that are very specific at like crafting something like this. So
like some legendary crafters.
Yeah, like this is a master craftsman who is specifically asking you to go get this for him to make. It would still take him forever to make. Like
this would definitely need to be a combo like fetch quest, merchant quest. Like this would need to be a big quest that rewards you with this item.
Yeah,
But,
this isn't the players going, oh, we killed the Remorhaz and I skinned it comics armor for it.
Legendary immunity.
Now I do think if you have a character who is a leather worker and does and that is kind of their more role play and background idea, I think giving them a shot at making it would be fine. But again, a lot of time, a lot of coin.
Yeah, you would need to invest so much.
Yeah.
So
I like it though.
yeah, nice
Yeah.
and simple. I think it fits the rarity that it's at. So
Sometimes you just need a simple legendary item. Sometimes I don't want to read a fucking like 2.5-page novel on this this weapon.
But on the other hand, sometimes I love to look at the Moonblade and be like, man, they really came up with 50 fucking abilities for this item.
They absolutely did.
all right. Well, any last words on this before we move on?
Nah.
So far, I think the only change we have for your items is upcasting Summon Undead and adding that charm effect. Or that charm overcome ability.
Yeah.
Yes, we were talking about possibly changing the saving throw calculation for the Undead Fortitude thing, but we also thought it was probably alright as is.
Yeah, I think just straight up jacking it from Undead Fortitude and just making it better is not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then we will move on down the sheet to Zach's item.
Alright, I'm gonna leave now.
No, same.
After I made this, I wasn't sure if this was legendary enough, but we'll see.
All right.
Diorette's Delicious Haunched Club.
Okay.
Club legendary requires attunement. Diorette, an avid fan of both fighting and cooking, spent his whole life blending the perfect mixture of spices and magic to create this delicious Haunched Club. Made from the meat of a great beast, cooked, seasoned, and enchanted, this club counts as a +2 weapon and deals an additional 2d6 fire damage. This club starts with 1d8 +2 charges, max of 10. While attuned to the club, as an action, you can take a bite out of the haunch of meat. Doing so grants you the effects of the Hero's Feast spell for 1 hour. Additionally, as a bonus action, you can point the club in a direction and have the delicious scent of the haunch waft over a 30-foot cone. Choose any number of creatures within the area to make a wisdom saving throw DC 20. On a failed save, a creature has disadvantage on attack rolls not made against you until the start of your next turn, as they are overcome with the overwhelming urge of wanting to take the club from you to try it for themselves. Once you have run out of charges, you can spend 1 hour cooking the haunch over a magical fire to regain 1d8 +2 charges.
Oh,
This is incredible.
This is
interesting.
awesome.
And magical fire.
Yep.
Now,
What?
What constitutes a magical fire?
Well,
Like if I just
magical flames are a thing.
Like
Spells
continual
will,
flame.
continual flame. Spells will specify if the flame it leaves behind is magical or not.
Actually, continual flame doesn't work for this because it emits no heat, but other magical fires would count.
so would like the bonfire cantrip count?
Yeah.
I thought bonfire was explicitly a non-magical fire.
No, you concentrate on that shit. It's magical fire.
You might be thinking of produce flame, maybe.
Oh, maybe I am. Is
Well, I was
bonfire not
referring-
concentration?
No, bonfire is concentration because
Oh,
bonfire
okay.
was a spell that I thought was produce flame. I was referring to Adam.
Yeah,
if
the
something,
magic bonfire. Cool.
wall of flame is a magical flame.
Absolutely.
Set you
When
up for
I
an
thought
hour.
of that, I thought of the alchemical fire potion that we got in Icewind.
Mm.
Something like
So-
that. It was mostly a flavorful thing.
Yeah. So
Flavorful.
so I like it, but I think that you are essentially just always going to be under the effects of this thing, unless you are adventuring for more than 8 hours a day, which is entirely possible.
He means the Hero's Feast part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Hero's Feast part.
Sure.
But
Go for it if that's what you want to do.
it is pretty funny, the idea of just you're fucking chewing on this club or this fucking giant like meat on a bone. I think
There might be. Sorry, I'm adjusting Hannah's question in chat. There might be like an inch wide punch hole you can get. I don't know if there's a 2-inch one for large creatures though. Um, so I'm not going to go in about wording. I think there's a better way to do the Heroes Feast thing, just because I feel like at the table they might be like, what constitutes as being the effects of Heroes Feast? Is it, do I cast Heroes Feast, or do I just get the benefits of it as if someone casts it on me? Which I think is your intention, that one.
Yes.
But
Yeah. No, you are the only person that can get the benefits of Heroes Feast.
yeah. I don't think that's bad. I think getting an advantage on wisdom saves, being immune to frighten and charm, and temporary maximum hit points isn't that crazy for an hour. I do think the cone effect is maybe because the DC might be too high.
Yeah.
Is
Like a
really
19?
fucking good. I think
Maybe
17.
we get DC like 17.
Yeah.
17.
Yeah.
I just
standard
made
for
it
legendary
20
item.
because it was legendary. I don't know what legendary standards are.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say the reason I'm calling out specifically is because it's not a charmed effect. So this
Okay.
affects all creatures. And this is a very, well, maybe not a fantastic way, but a decent way. It's basically casting compelled duel.
Yep.
In a cone.
Yeah.
And
Pretty large
it's
cone.
just for,
And you get to
just
choose.
for free. Yeah.
Yeah, it is for free.
Yeah.
It is just a bonus action.
Disadvantage. I think
And
if you
they don't have to attack you.
they don't,
True.
and at
It's just
this high of a
disadvantage.
and at this high of a level disadvantage, the monsters are still probably gonna hit most of your party. Anybody that's got like
True.
an 18 or lower AC, they're still probably
Well-
gonna hit.
Well, and also, like, a cone compelled duel is one of the only ways in the game to draw aggro from multiple creatures at once. Like,
True.
and so that is a pretty hefty cost to bear for most members of the party. On top of the fact that you then are using a club as your primary weapon instead of something that might be a little bit more effective.
Well,
It's
it
a
is a
+2 club with extra fire damage.
Yeah,
it is a +2 club with extra fire damage, but the thing is, a +2 weapon is merely rare. The Flame Tongue, which is a +1 with the 2d6, is very rare, I think.
I don't even know if it's +1. I think it might just be the 2d6. I'm not
Is
sure
it just
though.
the 2d6?
I'll
Actually,
look it up.
I think the Flame Tongue is just 2d6, and that's actually I think that's also rare. So a +2 is rare, a 2d6 is rare. So, like, honestly, I do think that this is legendary, but like you definitely are giving something up by using a club instead of a great axe or a halberd or something. Like
It is the Flame Tug is rare and just does 2d6 extra fire
That's not
damage.
+1.
I'm just trying to get to the club here to see like what the clubs. Okay, so a club is just a D4. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then honestly, I think it's perfectly fine. For whatever reason,
What if I made it a maul instead?
Making it a maul would be a significant power increase.
Yeah.
I
mean, I think you can make this a great club. You can make it a great club. The damage that goes from a D4 to a D8.
I don't know. I don't think what
is a
weapon
great
it is matters all too much. The 2d6 fire damage is doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
That was mostly for thematic almost, because I think the idea of you walking around holding a fucking feast in your hand and like using both your hands.
A maul would be significantly stronger though.
What if I made this a club or maul?
I mean, you could.
Should the Hero's Feast be limited to like once per day, maybe?
No,
So it's only on you.
It's only on you.
It is only on you, but like that's a lot of healing.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is that it's technically a lot of healing. That's what.
It's 2d10 per.
So
cast.
So
Yeah.
20d10 per day.
Well, but not necessarily per day. It's D8 plus 2. It's not a guaranteed 10. So more like 14 D10. But 14 D10 of healing
You
is
also
still
need to, if we're gonna be strict about the last paragraph, you do need to cook this for an hour over a magical fire, which are not
Bro.
readily available unless you have the right party member.
Well, and even if you do have the right party member, getting a magical fire to last an hour is going to be non-trivial because most concentration spells don't last that long.
Yeah,
Partially
giant
why I made
bonfire
it a
would be
magical
like your
fire.
best way.
And even then, you'd need like multiple people trading off, right?
No, you could just have one person essentially recast it for an hour straight.
Hannah says a normal club can be a great club if the owner loves it enough. That's
I love the
You know,
idea
that's true.
of making lesser weapons into great, like, or legendary weapons, just because then it gives you a reason. Like, if you
You
like
know what?
clubs
That's
to
fair.
use or pick a club out.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Hey, that gives me an idea for a legendary whip.
Also, the idea
Whip
of you
of sinew of a great beast that's been cooked by.
the idea of you holding this club, like if it is just stays as a club, you holding this club in one hand and then just some other like fuck all weapon in your other hand too. Because I mean, you could dual wield with this thing.
Yeah, clubs are light, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, clubs are technically light, so like that'd be
Oh
funny.
shit! A club does it one. I didn't know I thought a club did 1d6 actually.
No,
Yeah, that's why I was saying possibly a great
What if I
club.
made it a mace instead? Because I was thinking it was 1d6 damage.
Maces do D8, I believe.
They do d6.
They do D6?
he's looking at
Yeah.
the table right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not that invested in what item this is. I think a mace would be nice just because it makes it all d6s, but
Yeah. I thought it was d6.
I actually am a fan of rolling different dice with my damage.
What if I
Yeah,
just
it makes
made
it
it
easier to
3d6
separate.
fire?
if you make it 3-6 fire, I think it is too strong at that point because the Hero's Feast effect is really good, and the
Cone
bonus-
of compelled
What if-
duel.
the bonus
if-
action aggro is really good.
What if I'm trying to think about what if we made the Hero's Feast last for 10 minutes and you can eat it as a bonus action. So your first turn in combat can still do it.
I don't like that because that gives you very good bonus action healing. That gives you very good repeatable bonus action healing.
I think if you just made it like a total of, I don't know, 5 charges and get rid of the magical fire restriction. 5 Heroes Feast on average in a day, or maybe not on average, probably like 3 on average in a day is pretty damn good. The aggro's really good, the fire damage is really good, and I think it'd still be fun to do.
Yeah.
On an important day, this would be like, I need to spam this.
Right. Maybe make it like D4 plus 2 charges instead of D8 plus 2.
Yeah, D4. I was going to say D4 plus 1 just so it maxes at 5. But I mean, it really doesn't matter. 5, 6. Just because the Hero's Feast ability would be nice. Whenever you need more HP, just like, hey, I get essentially 10 more HP every hour, plus advantage on wisdom saves, plus immunity to, is it charmed and frightened or just frightened?
Frightened. And
Which
poison.
can be good.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of classes do get ways of getting around that anyway, like Paladin and Monk. Or Barbarian. So that might just be the Berserker.
Just a Berserker.
And I think martial classes are probably the ones who want to use this because of the bonus action. I think giving this to your spellcasters would be a mistake.
It'd be a funny mistake, though.
It would be. Here, you can have this for the Hero's Feast, and that's the only thing you get from it because you're not going to be fucking hitting people with this thing. And you're
Although,
not going to be
honestly,
aggroing.
Wait.
Although,
Wait.
honestly, aggro the enemies and then run away, that's a strategy.
This would be a good bonus. Oh no, because that ends if you force a save. Never mind. I was gonna say a good combo with Sanctuary, but I think Sanctuary also ends if you force a save as well.
I believe so. That sounds right.
Yeah.
Sanctuary ends if you do anything cool.
Damn.
It
I was
wouldn't
wondering.
end with invisibility because invisibility is only for spells and attacks.
Yeah.
You could invisibility this. They already have disadvantage on you, but now they have disadvantage on you and everyone else. So if you're invisible and use this, then they're just fucked. They have disadvantage against everyone.
Damn.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought that a club could like provide sneak attack damage.
It,
Because that
I
would be
feel like it
fucking
kind of
hilarious.
should, honestly. Because the bonking thing's pretty common in like movies and stuff to like knock someone out with a club. But anyway,
That'd be add it to the club. Let the wizards stop being cowards. Let the club proc sneak attack.
I'm not so sure the 2d10 healing is that bad, even if you
it's
have
not
it
just
10
the healing
times.
though. It's like they have pretty much immunity to Frightened and Charmed and Advantage on Wisdom saves like all the time.
I mean, they're not immune
Yeah.
to charm. They're immune
On
to
top
poison.
of +2, on top of fire, and on top of a free aggro ability.
Yeah.
Like it's not. We're trying to balance all of these together, and that's my choice for how to balance it. Because I think getting rid of the other things would be less cool. I guess I don't know. Because I think the
my
Hero's
choice-
Feast accomplishes the flavor with
Mhm.
5 charges just as much as it does with 10 charges. I'll just say I hate when
No,
people
no,
say
No. I did a weak laugh because you said flavor.
Oh, you said I didn't know if you were egging me
I was
or
like,
yourself. I was like, don't say Elaborate what you're thinking about.
Well, the way that I would balance it would just be that you use a charge whenever you do the cone. That would be the way that I would balance it. If you want to have that many charges.
I don't know. I like the cone as a no charge thing. I like that as a thing that you can just always do. I agree that it's powerful, but I like that as a like all the time thing.
I agree, but it does also fit like kind of.
I wanted something that you should still do with it, even if you ran out of charge.
The thing that you can do with it is the extra damage.
It's
But-
2d6 fire damage.
Yeah, it's extra d6 fire damage. But
But also, a flame tongue is only a rare weapon. Like
true, but a flame tongue
This is a
doesn't
claw.
have this possibility with it. I also think that it fits flavorfully. Again. If you can't use the bonus action, if you don't have any charges.
actually, maybe you can't use this if the haunch has no charges. I could get behind that. Even if it doesn't spend charges to do it.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
doesn't cost charges, but you can only do it if you have charges.
Which would then help with like from like kind of spamming all that healing on yourself. You then have to weigh like
I mean, it doesn't really, because you can span all but one of them.
right, but also
Well,
as a note, I think that the healing and then the AoE compelled duel.
one thing to address about the healing, by the way, is that it doesn't stack. You get the benefits of Hero Feast for an hour. You can't end them. Nothing about this ability lets you end that effect. So you can't be like, okay, let me just heal myself up for, I don't know, 8d10. Right? And it's a max health thing. So like even if it did go away, it's gonna go like your max health is gonna go down as well, or your current health's gonna go down. Actually, I don't know if Hero's Feast specifies that.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. So it wouldn't go down. But like you can't like eat, get rid of the max, eat, get rid of the max just to heal yourself. You can only have it once per hour. So like I don't think the healing, like Zach said, I don't think the healing is the big deal. Because you can't spam it.
Actually, you
that's
can,
fair. Yeah.
you can, because it says your max HP increases by that much, and you gain that much HP. It's two separate effects.
But you
But you
can't
would-
benefit from the same named benefit at the same time. So you can't max out yourself twice with Hero's Feast because it's both Hero's Feast.
Right, you can't like be under the effects of the same spell twice, but it has an instantaneous effect as well as an ongoing effect.
So
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that if you were DMing, you would, if your party wanted to, they can cast Hero's Feast twice and heal. Like they really wanted to use the spell slots.
Yeah, if they aren't at max HP and they want to use a 5th level spell slot as a very bad Mass Cure Wounds, yeah.
Especially
I'm sorry, a 5th level spell slot and a 10,000 gold encrusted bowl.
Yeah. And
I don't know if I don't know if I would allow
and
that.
also that takes place during a short rest.
If they already had like Hero's Feast and they ate another one, I would redo the max hit dice roll.
Right, but what we're
But you
talking
can't
about,
stack them.
what we're talking about is the current hit point increase you get when when it first comes into
So-
effect.
So
right,
like
because your max HP increases by an amount, and you also gain that much HP. Because
So, like-
technically, your max HP going up doesn't gain you any HP; it just increases your maximum.
Yeah.
So like with aid, like how aid increases their current and max HP. Like just think of aid as like that subsection of Heroes
Yeah,
Feast.
so like what you're proposing, Adam, is that you would let your party cast aid twice. They wouldn't get the max HP, but they would get the current HP.
I mean, yeah, that's strictly worse than Cure Wounds.
I'm not worried about it being broken. I'm just talking about like how to apply the rule.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that.
I would change their hit dice.
You can't have the same effect on you, but that's a lingering thing, not an instantaneous thing. The spell has a lingering effect and an instantaneous effect.
I would treat it as a new cast of Heroes Feast. So you would get all of those effects that do linger again, just because they're all the same. But the max health of whatever you had from the first time you did
would have it
lose,
replace it,
and then you replace it with whatever the new roll is. But you do also get the healing. You replace it. You would be replacing the max hit die.
Yeah, I do. The original point I was trying to make is that these two abilities complement each other because one is drawing aggro, and the other, and so you're more prone to being attacked or more prone to taking damage. The other one is trying to patch you up a little bit from that.
I didn't even think about this for the healing, but also it is an action just to get 2d10.
Yeah. I mean, out of combat.
And if you're using this as like a fighter or like some martial class, you have much better. Like you don't want to be using an action just to get 2d10
okay.
most of the time.
Stacking bonuses. Different game features can affect a target at the same time, but when two or more game features have the same name, only the effects of one of them, the most potent one, apply while the durations of the effects overlap. So, rules as written, you can cast Heroes Feast twice, and you get the better of the two max HP increases. But you would also gain the HP from both of them, because that's not an effect that is lingering. That's not the overlapping duration. That's just an instantaneous thing. At least that's my reading of this.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and I that's fine.
I would
think
agree.
that's fine still.
I would agree with that. And in saying this, still, I think we drop it down to 5 charges.
Sure.
We add in the ribbon that you can't use the cone if you have no charges. And we get rid of the magical fire thing, right?
I don't want to get rid of the magical fire.
You don't want to get rid of the magical fire?
No.
Okay.
Why?
I think he likes the flavor behind it.
The flavor, and also I think it makes it more interesting and more thought of as to when you can use it.
Right.
I do agree that having a non-standard recharge is really cool.
Well, I mean, it could still be a non-standard recharge if you get rid of the word magical. Like, nothing else in the game recharges after an hour of cooking over a fire.
Right, but that's not a
That's
not a meaningful restriction. That's something that you could do anytime you make camp.
And the like weapon was made using magic, and so it felt like you would need some sort of magic to get it back. I like keeping the magical fire.
I mean, sure. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but it is a massive restriction if the party's not built for that.
Mm-hmm. Then either it's hard for that party that you gave this weapon, and it's an interesting thing that they have to figure out how to recharge, or you give it to a party that does have it and is able to use it.
Right, but my issue with that is that as a DM, I have to consider whether or not this is a good item to give my party. And if they don't have magical fire, then I'm probably not going to give it to them because it's not a meaningful choice. Maybe if I do want them to have a full-on consumable cool item for a bit, okay. But if they do have magical fire, then that last line means nothing. As Adam said, it's just you can do it over a camp, and it's not interesting. So the item itself isn't adding anything to like the party's not making any interesting choices. Only the DM is, essentially.
So the DM can have fun too.
Well, and also like there
Right,
are
but the way you were presenting it was as if it was an interesting choice for the party. I just don't think that's the case.
Well, but I mean, if the party has access to magical fire, but just not all the time, like maybe if
That's
they
true.
have access to a magical fire that is stationary, it's like, okay, you can only recharge this when you come back to your base. Or like
That's
if
true.
they need someone else's help to make magical fire. And also there are a lot of items, well, maybe not a lot, but there are a non-zero number of items that just never recharge.
Mm-hmm.
So like I don't know, I just think the idea of making it hard to recharge, that's cool to me. I like that. I agree with Zach on this one.
I don't have a problem with magical fire. I just it's the specific reasons for the magical fire I was just defending against. But yeah, no, I agree. I think the idea of like having such a specific restriction is perfectly fine. But the Hero's Feast thing is very interesting. So you could spam this for healing.
Mhm.
Especially if you do have access to magical fire. Which is a very big boon on top of all the other things this item already does. But I think
it does take an action to use. I'd be willing to lower the charges if you guys think that is too many.
I don't think that the charges are necessarily too many. I think that what you want to do is prevent them from spamming it all at once, which is why I originally suggested the once per day restriction on the Hero's Feast.
They can't spam it all at once because it takes an action.
Well, right, but I mean
like
outside of combat,
like between combats.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't really have time for a short rest, but I do have 30 seconds to take 5 bites out of this haunch.
yeah, and having 1 hour afterward, you know, like 1 hour is a pretty big boon. So like even if I have 1 hour per day where I can have Hero's Feast, that's still really good. The fact that I can also spam HP from it is almost it's a secondary effect.
Sure, I always fucking forget about this. I just like don't expect people to fucking break shit healing wise out of combat because I never think of the out of combat shit.
Yeah,
I'm fine with lowering it for that reason alone because it's fucking stupid.
Yeah, I always forget about out of combat healing too. And in fact, I distinctly remember one time where we were talking about something, and I was like, oh, wait, I've got a perfect fix. But then my fix made it useless in combat and even better out of combat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd be fine making it 5 charges, adding the you have to have 1 charge to do the bonus action thing, because I think that's interesting. And making it you gain 1d4 plus 1 charges when you cook it.
So you wait. So you do want you are okay with putting a charge on the bonus action ability?
No, not using a charge, but you have to have a charge to be able to use that ability.
I like that. I do a lot of that. I love
I like that.
You must have at least something to do this thing. I think that's a great mechanic because it's effectively consuming 1 charge, but it also gives you a choice to make. Like, is it worth it for me to spend this last charge if I can't do this anymore?
The one thing about that, though, is the way that I have this is you can't recharge this until there are no charges on it.
Oh, that is interesting. Okay. I still like that. I just didn't. Yeah. I hadn't read that correctly.
Yeah, because the bottom is once you have run out of charges, you can spend 1 hour to cook it to get the charges back, and you're not guaranteed to get 10 charges because you're rolling a d8 and you're getting 2.
Yeah,
that's not bad because, like, I mean, okay, I'll just eat the last bite and then cook it.
Yeah, since you can use it as an action, that's not a super big restriction. Yeah. But no, I do think that's cool that you have to use it up before you can regain charges.
I think
that means that you can't stockpile charges because like with some rechargeable items, it's like, oh well, yeah, I used all the charges, but I'll just wait for a couple days and then it all comes back. With this one, it's like, no, what you roll is what you have.
Yep. So I could make it the 5 still, and I would keep those restrictions on it, and then that makes it less out of combat healing. Even if you do get max charges.
Yeah, even if you get max charges, then it's only 10d10, which I mean is good, don't get me wrong, but like it takes 5 actions to get there. I think that
And it puts you in situations where it could be like you do have to decide whether you want to eat this last like piece of it, lose your bonus action ability, and not be able to cook it for a certain amount of time if like you're in the middle of something.
Right.
It adds the dichotomy that I like of like having to make a decision on if you want this effect or the heal right now because you're not sure if you're able to do something until later.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think that's really cool.
So I'm fine with those changes. And at that point, though, I'm just going to have it start with 5 charges.
Yeah, I was going to change that to starting because all other magical items do that too.
No, some of them do. You roll to see how many charges it
The
starts
very
with.
specific, like, lore ones do, like the Ring of Wishes, for instance, like the one that gives you wishes. But, like,
I've seen a
things like
few.
wands and staves almost all start with a flat number.
See, I feel like I've seen a lot that say like, oh, this number, and then in parentheses, like, oh, D10 plus 3. Like, the same way that they'll have HP as like, oh, this is the flat number, or if you want to roll for it, there's this too.
Well, then I've probably just seen, like, specific magical items then that have it the way that I'm thinking.
I do think that they have done it both ways on different items.
I know they've done it both ways. The ones that you were describing, I thought were the far fewer than the other ones, but that could just be because of the magical items I tend to look at. Like, I'm pretty sure all wands that I can think of start with flat number and then recharge a die equation that equals that number.
Right.
But yeah, so then
5 charges, DC down to 17.
Can't use the bonus action unless you have at least 1 charge.
Oh yeah.
And then that's making a D4 plus 1 for 5. And then yeah, there we go. No changes to the first paragraph, just to the last couple.
Dope. I'm happy with that. I wasn't sure if this was legendary enough, but I'm glad it was.
It's absolutely legendary.
It's definitely legendary.
The Hero's Feast definitely felt strong, so.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well then, I think my item's next. It is.
Ooh.
Let's move on down the page, which means we have Justin's last. All
yeah,
right.
that's good.
So, here we have. Adam looks very distracted.
I'm looking at the list of magic items with charges, and it looks like you are right. All of them that I've looked at so far just have X charges, and they regain a roll.
Okay. All right. Well, here is my magical item. Point blank weapon, a dagger, legendary, requires attunement. You gain +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls with this weapon, and it deals an additional 2d6 psychic damage on a hit. When you hit a creature with this weapon, you can deal an additional 3d6 psychic damage to the target. If you do, each creature which witnesses this event must succeed on a DC 17 Wisdom saving throw or have its memory of the last 1 minute changed to an alternate version of your own creation. You can designate any number of creatures whose memories are not changed, and this property can't be used again until the next dusk.
Oh,
is this just AoE modify memory every time, like once per day?
Yes, pretty much.
Fuck yeah. That's fucking awesome.
I fucking love this. And the first place that my mind went to was like one person in a crowd, and this could be like a backstory too. Witnessed an assassination of like a fucking very important political leader, and nobody else made the save, just them, and nobody believes them.
Yeah.
Well, it would be clear that the person was killed, because they will still die.
Right, but
it's just what led to the death. People are like, wait, what the fuck just happened?
Right, yeah.
Well, he just had a heart attack.
He had a heart attack, and then suddenly there was a stab wound.
Or everybody in the crowd thinks they just saw someone else do it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, nobody can agree on who the killer was.
So I told Adam before the podcast that this had something that nothing else in 5e has done mechanically, but I got rid of that. The thing, because I wanted to work a specific way, where I had it originally that if a witness's wisdom score didn't meet a certain threshold, they just failed. So they didn't get a save. The reason I did that was sort of like filling the holes of what could happen if a DM used this in a game and the players eventually got the weapon. Were like, wait, so everyone failed the save? That seems unlikely, which is a problem with bounded accuracy.
Yeah.
But what I decided was is that as the DM, you don't roll a wisdom save for an entire crowd. You don't have to. You can just tell the players, yes, they failed the save. Get over it. Like, I don't need. And maybe like if you want, you can make one NPC who did see it. Fine. I was in my mind, I was making that into more of a problem than it actually was. I don't think most tables would be like, so you're telling me that besides like, you know, like surface level ribbing, like just like elbowing the DM, like, so you're telling me all those people failed? I don't think anybody's gonna take it seriously, or at least the vast majority of people. So I was like, I'm just gonna axe that. It's a high DC. The DM could just say, yes, you guys have pretty decent wisdom saves, so you saw it, but everybody else didn't. They're just fucking commoners.
Yeah, I mean, like,
the only thing that would like be a real problem with, like, and you could actually be angry about it, is if you didn't do enough as a DM to give more ways to help the party figure out whatever the fuck it was. Like if it relied on like those people knowing, and like they got to the end of whatever they were doing and they're like, we have no other leads. You're telling us nobody knows anything. And you're like, because
as a DM, I mean, it would be fun to just have only the party not see it, but obviously there will be some people who see it. Either people that the assassin didn't choose as targets, or, you know, the assassin themselves, because they probably didn't choose themselves. Though that would be an interesting way to get through interrogation.
Modify your own memory so that you don't remember committing the crime.
Yeah. And I actually should probably add an effect on here that makes it so the assassin can get away, because this only affects the last minute. But the assassin will be standing there after stabbing the person like, but you guys all saw that guy do it. So there's probably some more stuff I should add here to cover some of those bases, so it still works the way I want it to. But yeah, like, there are gonna probably be other important NPCs the DM is going to decide whether they, like, you know, maybe there's a wizard there, or maybe like the victim's spouse, like people that they might want to actually see what happened.
Yeah, you could roll for the more important NPCs if you really wanted to, or something like that.
But what if you made it? You'd probably do that before the session.
Yeah. What if you made it at the start of their next turn? So like the person has 6 seconds before this triggers on people.
Well, what I was thinking was that maybe once that effect goes off, the person is considered heavily obscured to anyone who failed the save for the next until the start of their next turn.
Yeah, I was either going to add it to affect the next minute as well, or make it like they turn invisible and can't make any sound. Like, they're pretty much imperceptible, besides people who have like true sight or something.
There is something that happened in your campaign that I think you could use for like a good reference. Valerie, for some reason, none of, like, when she was with Penance at the bridge, it was just some ordinary woman, like, of no important note or something like that. You could take reference from whatever ability she had there.
That was a spell.
I like heavily obscured. I think that's really good, actually.
Yeah, I mean, because heavily obscured, it sounds weird to do heavily obscured just because it sounds like there's things blocking them. But heavily obscured is just a description of not being able to be seen very well.
It says a creature effectively suffers from the blinded condition when trying to see something in that area. Which
I think that's
right. That's the thing. So like anyone who saw this, who failed their save, like for the next 6 seconds, you're just kind of a blur to them.
Yeah, and anybody who's made it, that way they're not invisible, because
invisibility would be less effective because that's not true. That's not true. Invisibility would be ineffective to true sight and blind sight, whereas heavily obscured would only be effective to blind sight.
Well, and invisibility would be more effective against the people who didn't make the save, whereas the heavily obscured, if you fail the save thing, people who made the save can still see them
you.
getting away.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah,
True.
yeah. That's why I liked heavily obscured.
Yeah, that's why I went for that, because it was a way to limit the obscuring effect to only the people who failed the save.
Plus, it's a lesser used thing.
I would
Yeah, you're
probably
probably.
I'd probably change it so it affected everyone. Not the reason I was thinking invisible instead of heavy obscured is because I don't want a scenario. I don't want this dagger to make a scenario where people in the crowd who see this, who will take action, will chase the person down. I don't want that, because I want this to be, because that the point of this dagger is to allow for a specific narrative, and making it so people make their save can chase the person down could ruin that narrative pretty easily. So I would probably make it invisibility, or just make it heavily obscured to everyone.
What if what if instead of invisibility it just like teleports them like up to 15 feet or
That's
something?
actually way better. Teleporting them to some other location.
Teleport them. I would say like 200 feet.
200?
Immediately get away.
You're trying to, if you're trying to construct a narrative, one of the best things to do is to make it so that way they are
anywhere on
away.
that plane of existence.
That would be massive.
I think 15 or 30 feet would be fine. If this is supposed to be a thing that you are using in a crowd, like 15 or 30 feet is pleny of distance.
Right, but the way that
maximum like
the way that I'm thinking that of like how you
Okay, my big problem with 200 feet is that in combat that is a bonkers amount of teleportation. That is bonkers.
So is Dimension Door.
Yeah, so is Dimension Door, so is just like teleport. And this is a legendary item, so you're probably giving it to an NPC who's already super powerful.
Right, but this happens for free on an attack. Like
true.
On one.
Yes, it's only once per day, but like being able to deal, I don't know, 6d6 damage, because it's a dagger plus 5d6 psychic. Oh, I'm sorry, 5d6 plus 1d4 damage, and then teleport 200 feet away for free? That seems a little much to me. I think that like 30 to 60 feet tops would be all you need.
Do they need to see the location, or could it just be they teleport 60 feet?
I don't think they should need to see it, because in a crowd, a lot of positions will be heavily obscured. I think 30 to 60 feet, no line of sight would be fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
guess. Nope. I was just gonna say, I guess because like 60 feet still fills the narrative that I'm thinking of. Because I think when I think of this dagger being used, I think of someone like giving a speech, and there's like a wide open area like by them or something like that, and somebody manages to stab them with this dagger.
This is why you gotta think of more scenarios, because you can also use this if you're like the rogue and like you go into some place, you get caught. Well, fuck, I'll stab this guy and go away real quick, because I didn't want to get caught.
That is pretty funny.
My first scenario was
it's also
like
a legendary item, which would make it really cool for the players.
Oh shit! I'll rob you another day.
But I handed this in the chat. You can stab someone, make everyone think they had friendly fire and were attacking, and you were never there, and vanish as they continue attacking. If you want to stay out of combat, maybe give an immediate charge up time.
That was the first comment. There is kind of what the scenario that I imagined. You go into a room as a rogue alone. Something that happened in an old campaign that we had, where you like attack somebody, or like you even get into like a combat where it's like just you, or even if it is your party, like you get into a combat with this group of people. You only need to kill one person. You successfully kill that person first. When you use this dagger as a last hit, change everybody's memory immediately after that, and then are like, "What the fuck happened?" And like, then they are like confused as to what happened, or like whatever memory you gave them is what has happened now.
It's also funny too, because you don't need to kill the target with this. You can just stab them; they're still alive, and then they think that their best friend just stabbed them.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of opportunities here. I would be more concerned about. I want to balance this between very useful as a DM narrative tool, and also a very fun item for the players. I think 60%. I think a 60-foot teleportation would accomplish both of those very well.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
And I'd probably make it 60 feet, like dimension door where you could just specify distance and not have to know what it looks like or see it or anything like that.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
But yeah, I think that's
And the area that it happened is heavily obscured. I'm just kidding.
I'm like so like
I just wanted to use heavily obscured somewhere.
you for the last minute of your the last minute you see your friend stab, and then the friend turns into just like a blank of space that you can't see. Because the area is heavily obscured for a turn.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like this a lot. I like a lot of these. I like the teleportation session because I was trying to think of a way. I was thinking about it during the podcast. Like, fuck, I don't have a way of getting away,
Right.
which is essential for the point of this like item.
Yeah.
The only thing I have to say about this is that I'm very happy with the name.
I love the name. Yeah, that's the name is. I think the name is my favorite part of this. Like the whole thing is good, but the name is my favorite part. I am a sucker for a good name.
The name is where I got the effect. I was sometimes when I'm working on something or like trying to be creative, phrases will just appear in my mind. Often the phrase is "he dies" or "they die." I don't know why, but I thought of the word point or the phrase "point blank," and I was like, huh, point
I thought of
blank.
I thought of Haunched, and that's how I came up with mine.
Names have power. We learned about Laugh It Off as well.
Man, I'm still very happy with how Laugh It Off came out. That was a lot of fun coming up with something on the fly in an episode.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We should do another workshop episode at some point, even though those could sometimes be a clusterfuck.
They're usually only a clusterfuck if we go into them expecting to present a bunch of content, and then at the last minute we're like, "Hey guys, none of us came up with anything. Can we do a workshop instead?"
All right. We are running up on an hour and a half, so we can move on from this. Only addition really is the 60-foot teleportation.
Yeah,
and it's good.
Yes,
and
heavily obscured somewhere.
What?
No.
Heavily obscured somewhere.
This looks insane.
Here's Justin coming very close to copyright for Critical Role.
It's Zemmian blade.
Not Zemmian.
No, I also didn't even think that's how that was pronounced, but okay. It's been a minute since I've heard things from the second campaign. So like the pronunciations are pretty.
I have no idea what you're talking about because I haven't finished.
It's probably in both. It was introduced in the second campaign.
Anyways, warriors from across the world attempt to undergo the trials set. What did you say?
Finish your duelist class. Don't make a magical item to not make your duelist class.
Shut the fuck up! Let's not focus on the duelist class. Listen, this isn't for the duelist class. It could be. I didn't think about that.
This has nothing to do with the duelist. It just turns a fighter into a duelist.
Fuck off. I love this. Shut up.
Go on, sorry.
Warriors from across the world attempt to undergo the trials set forth by the Forward Monastery, Zorath's Fighting Academy, and the Corellic Order for the chance to wield the Zemmian blade. It's said that only a warrior in tune with the very dance of battle itself can use these blades to their maximum potential. Weapon longsword, legendary, requires attunement by a fighter. So fuck you, I didn't make it for my duelist class, I made it for the fighter. You gain a +1 to attack and damage rolls with this sword, and it has the finesse property. This slimmed blade has 7 sheens of various colorations, and the wielder can change the color of the sheen at any time. Once at the start of your turn, you can change the stance of the sword. If one of these stances requires a saving throw, the DC equals 8 plus proficiency plus strength or dex mod.
All right, quick pause. Justin, would you please share with everyone what the core mechanic of the duelist class is?
It's a stance. Fuck off.
Okay.
All right, he's on the camera.
Hemlock stance. While in the stance, the blade becomes a +2 to attack and damage rolls, and you cannot be moved against your will while you are conscious. Delanthian stance. When you enter the stance, you can choose to regain half of your maximum hit points rounded up, and you have advantage on any intelligent, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. Once you have gained hit points this way, you cannot gain hit points again from the stance until you finish a long rest. Avalish stance. While in this stance, you gain twice your Constitution modifier and 10 hit points at the start of your turn and cannot be charmed or frightened. If you are charmed or frightened when you enter this stance, you can end the effect on yourself as an action. Zendalia stance. While in this stance, you have advantage on all strength, dexterity, and constitution ability checks and saving throws. Additionally, once per turn when you hit a creature with a melee attack, you can force a creature to make a strength saving throw or be knocked prone. Laziel stance. While in the stance, your weapon attack's crit range is increased by 1, and you can make a special action surge once per short rest. When you use this action surge, you can do an additional bonus action and move half your movement speed. This sounded easier in my head. Gorik stance. While in this stance, your maximum hit points cannot be reduced. You gain a flying speed equal to your movement speed, and you don't provoke attack of opportunities.
Attacks of opportunity.
Yeah.
No, attack opportunity attacks.
Yeah. I don't know why I think I was looking at mobile for too long. Anyways, 4-wall stance. While in the stance, you have resistance to fire, cold, thunder, lightning, and acid damage. Once per long rest, you can cast Steel Wind Strike using strength or dexterity as your spellcasting ability modifier, and the number of targets you can choose becomes all within range.
Woo! Okay, what are your thoughts?
This is a lot. I believe that I have kind of, this is either a very strong legendary item bordering on artifact or an artifact or a weapon that potentially should be an artifact.
So okay, two things. One, the first stance, is it Helmach or Hemlock? Helmach. Okay, because I was gonna ask, why are the first two stances named after two of Sid's characters?
Who the fuck is that? Delanthian.
Keldrim's last name is Dalanthan.
Oh, well, I don't know that.
You do know that because you're anyway. This is pretty strong.
Yeah, this is quite strong. Oh man.
You can change at the start of your turn.
Right,
No
so
limits.
You don't have a ton of control over when you change, but you can change every turn.
Yeah.
So you can if you want, change the 4-wall, use its long rest ability, and just change something else if you don't want the resistance anymore.
Right.
I think you're right. I think this is more of an artifact than a legendary item.
Yeah, I was skeptical when you said that because there is a ton of power budget for legendary items, but
my main thing I think is just probably this boils down to where martial classes are at later levels and how much they get gapped by spellcasters. And I was trying to compensate, I think, for that gap.
I think less stances.
See,
so we've made this comment about artifacts and legendary items, and Hannah asked, "What's the difference between an artifact and an item?" Just to step up. Basically, yes. Pretty much anything you can do with an artifact, you can do with a legendary item, and it's basically just like either the attached lore or the power of it. One thing that does differentiate them is like the beneficial and detrimental effects. I don't think any legendary items have that.
No, that's exclusive to artifacts. Another thing is no artifacts use charges. If it's something that an artifact can do, you can do it unlimited. I don't think there's any artifacts that use charges. They're all just like static.
The Eye and Hand of Vecna have charges on them.
Oh, you're right. The Eye and Hand do because they let you cast spells out of them. That's true.
What if you gave this charges? Does that change this at all?
If you give this charges, it would definitely change it. Like if you could use a charge to change your stance for sure.
Yeah, like every
honestly,
change uses a charge.
If you had 7 charges, so it's like, okay, you can visit each stance once, or just like switch between 2 a bunch. Like that would take away a lot of the power of being able to do this freely all the time.
And 7's a pretty good number for a full day. You gain them all back at a dawn. You're not guaranteed to use them all, but you can, and sometimes you definitely might use them all in a whole day.
And I will say it does also kind of make you kind of think about what the last stance is that you enter, because then that is the stance that you're in for the rest of the day. I like that idea. it does also make you want to manage, which stances that you think are more valuable than the others, which ones.
Right, and like, okay, yeah, Delanthian is really good because of the intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saves, but you probably want to save that until later in the day so that regaining half your maximum hit points is actually valuable.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I would say
Guruk stance seems crazy.
Which one?
Is the Guruk one. The
Oh yeah.
Your smashing points can't. That one, that effect, the very first effect from that, feels very out of place compared to the other two. Are these names from something like? Okay,
Just made them up.
So there's no attached flavor to Goric.
There's no attached flavor to Goric other than the fact that I was coming up with names for each of these stances last night. I'm like, how can I come up with this? All right, sit here, think real hard about a specific letter, come up with a combination of letters. Yes.
Okay, see, I was half expecting you to come out at the end of this and be like, oh yeah, and these are
League of
all
Legends?
Yeah, League of Legends characters, or like, these are all inspired by like a Smite move set or something. Like
one of the I don't even remember which fucking name it is on here. One of them, I went to Xanathar's, flipped through like some of the names, found a name, and I was like, I'm gonna adjust this one slightly. But I don't even remember what name it was.
Justin won't bring any more League of Legends characters to Dead Bards because the last time he did, he got upset that I changed the name. Your reach ability for Rangers that I changed to Pan's reach instead.
That was not even League of Legends. That was
something.
It was Shadow of Mordor.
That's what it was, Shadow of Mordor. Yeah. The last time he brought like a name that is definitely copyrighted and I changed it, he was upset.
I don't think that was the last time that I brought one, because I think did we do that before the first set of legendary items or after?
After, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, then I guess I just haven't thought of anything. Nothing has like sparked my interest enough.
Was it after? It's hard to say. But
who's to say?
If we did want to keep this an artifact,
which is an attractive option.
It is an attractive option.
I think this sword deserves some sentience.
Oh, that would be dope.
There are sentient weapons that aren't artifacts. Some legendaries are sentient.
Some are.
Yeah, but I would feel weird. I guess I wouldn't feel weird. I don't know. I think of artifact. I think it's sentience, and I'm like artifact. But yeah, there are definitely ones that aren't artifacts. It just feels more artifacty to me.
There's actually not very many sentient artifacts.
When I was looking for artifacts for your one shot, it felt like every other one was sentient. If you didn't include like the newer books,
I feel like the only sentient one from the DMG is the Sword of Kaz.
The Sword of Kaz, I believe the
Wand of Orcus also, but Wand of Orcus has like limited sentience.
There's quite a few from the DMG that are sentient.
I
obviously don't know off the top of my head anymore, but
Axe of Dwarvish Lords is not sentient.
I think that's all of the weapons from the. I think that's all of the artifact weapons.
I'm looking at the hand and the eye, and it doesn't appear like they are sentient.
Oh, I felt like they're all over the place. I may have just been overreacting because I saw ones that were like, "Oh, this ability's cool. Oh, it's sentient. I don't want to do that."
But I mean,
the Wand of Orcus is sentient,
right? Well. And like 3 is almost half of them. So like,
that's true. There's not a lot of artifacts.
Well, that's just that's the Sword of Cass and the Wand of Orcus are the only two in the DMG. So 2 out of a quarter of them, I think, or a fifth. I don't know how many artifacts actually have in here. I think they have like.
I think there's 8 or 9, yeah.
Okay, then maybe there are more sentient ones in Explorer's Guide than I thought there was. Anyway.
So some of these stances feel a little like unrelated to each other. Like I'm specifically looking at like Leziel and Gwarrick. Like the expanded crit range and special action surge feel kind of weird together. The max hit points thing, along with fly speed and the not provoking, like fly speed and not provoking feels good together because that's like mobility tied. But like the max hit points thing feels weird with that
speed as well, like 10 feet of movement speed instead of the max hit point.
Sure, yeah, I could see that.
Okay.
Because I like.
Sorry, I know I said anyway, but every artifact from Explorer's Guide to Wildemount is sentient.
Oh, okay.
Every one of
But
them.
isn't that just because Matt Mercer really loves sentient items?
They're also all weapons. Yeah, probably. But anyway, actually, anyway.
Anyway.
So I will admit that the Goric stance is definitely the one that's like the most disconnected with itself. But the Lae'zel stance, I've added the increased crit range because chances are, if you're going to take this special action surge, like you're going to be making more attacks. So I was like, let's just give it a little bit of an expanded crit range.
But with the special action surge, you only
they
get a bonus action.
Well,
and
I think
move.
I think what he intended there is you get an action, a bonus action, and half your movement speed. It's better than a regular action surge. It's action surge plus.
Oh, I read this as a completely different thing from action surge. It was just a special action surge. Not when you used action surge, you also gained these benefits.
This is for this action surge, you get those benefits.
Yes.
Right. It gives you an extra action surge that's also better.
Yeah. It's essentially like taking a second, almost a full second turn. Obviously, there's still some limitations. Like you can't use.
I mean, just half your movement. That's the only limitation, really.
Well, you can't also use you can't do an item interaction.
Right. You don't get a second item interaction, which no one gives a shit about. But you technically don't get it.
Yeah, I know. It was one of those things where I was just like, this is probably really strong. I might want to change that to once per long rest.
The Hellmock seemed a little bit underwhelming compared to the rest of these as well.
The Hellmock was the first stance that I came up with, and it was also the stance that I was because I originally thought that most of these stances you are going to probably enter them once to use like their more like core ability, and then switch back over to the Hellmock stance.
Yeah, it seems like Hellmock and Avalish are the ones that you're supposed to stay in.
Yeah.
I think if you add charges and it's limited, then Hellmock has to be stronger.
Honestly, I think Hellmock's fine because like Hellmock alone would be a very rare weapon.
Sure, but you don't get anything else from this.
You can't be moved.
Right, but you get the option.
That's true, I guess.
When you get the option of all of these other things, which includes casting a 5th level spell on every target in range.
Yeah, but if you have a legendary item where all of the effects feel like they're legendary effects, and then you have this one effect that feels like a very rare effect, are you ever going to go in that stance?
I don't think these are all legendary effects. I think that they all come together to be an artifact. But like... Like the Steel Wind Strike on all targets within range, that's enormously powerful. Yeah, you only get to do it once per long rest, but like that's enormously powerful.
It's every creature within 30 feet of you.
Right. The Lae'zel stance, where like you get an extra action surge, but it's even better, and also your crit range is expanded while you're in that stance. That's really good. 2 different stances that each give you advantage on 3 different saving throws. Like, one of which regains half your HP, the other one lets you knock creatures prone on attacks. Like, these are all worth your time. And, like, I think that Hellmock or Avalish are probably the ones you want to stay in the most, but I think that giving you, like, 7 charges to move around these with would make this closer to an appropriate power level for a legendary item.
This does have a couple of these have some odd things going on. I think the Action Surge one is a bit clunky.
Yeah.
So that could definitely be arranged. I think Avalish's second effect, that you can use that seems very strange to me, because let's say you're dominated, for instance. If you're dominated, would you change to Avalish? Why would you do that? If not, like, if your enemy is controlling you, why would your character think to go into that form to use the action to do that thing?
But in Justin's defense, that same logic applies to the monk ability that lets you end a charm effect on yourself.
The monk ability doesn't require you to enter a stance to even use the action.
Right, but it still has the same prime mover question of why are you using this ability at all if you're charmed?
True.
You shouldn't want to use the ability.
This just adds another layer to it. That's like
I think you would have to have some definite explanation about entering this stance.
I think
Mhm.
this blade more than that monk ability makes the table have to make a strong stance and how that works.
I think what it should be is instead of you end it on yourself as an action, if you're charmed when you enter the stance, you get to make a saving throw.
That's what I was
against it.
thinking, but then still, why would you ever like
I would make it like
think to move into this?
you can while you're charmed, you can choose to use this, like just specify that you overcome the charm specifically to use this stance or something like that. It's still weird. That ability by itself is already weird.
So what if it was never mind, because that'd be real fucky with how the changing of the stance already is.
Yeah, it's also weird that the change of the stance is an action-free thing. Like, I get why it's that, but like that is weird.
Yeah, I think if
I actually think
if changing your stance of the cost of your movement was a thing, this would bring that down. Even if we're free, it'd be at the cost of your movement you do this. It'd still be very powerful. I still don't even know if it would bring it down to a legendary, but it would be less crazy.
Yeah.
I think I think for the Avalanche stance, maybe add in a clause that says if you fail a charm or frighten effect, you can use your reaction to enter this stance and no longer be charmed or frightened.
Yeah.
That would work pretty well.
Yeah, and again, if you know, because I'm still under the impression that we're trying to make this a legendary item.
I think we are
adding a charge. Adding the 7 charges, you expend a charge, use your reaction, get into this stance.
Yeah. That seems perfectly fair.
What if instead of making it your full movement to like, if you're gonna add having to use something to switch stances, make it half your movement?
I think that was going to be the consensus, but
I don't think we'd mentioned it at all. But the half movement was what I was thinking.
I guess that's
because it kind of makes sense that it's like, okay, yeah, you're changing your stance, so that's going to consume some of your ability, some of your mobility for the turn, like.
And then it kind of makes sense why the 1 gives you half movement.
Is that on top of charges?
Yeah, I was thinking so.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's what I was the impression.
It's a charge, but it's still low cost action economy wise.
Yeah,
and it will kind of incentivize you to maybe stay in a stance at all times. I think.
There's no way to not be in a stance. You have to be in one of the stances.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Because then at the end of a day, you're going to still be in that.
Not if you never enter a stance in the first place.
That's true. You could, if you never enter a stance, you don't have to be in one. But once you've entered one, there's no way to end a stance without entering another.
I think make this not require attunement.
You're funny, Zach.
It's only fighters.
Well,
then how is it going to be?
We'd have to add like that's something that 5e's never done before, but like an item that specifically can only be used by a class, despite the fact that's not magically restricted in that way. That would, if the sword was sentient, that would make sense though, because the sword's like, you're not a fucking fighter, get the fuck out of here.
Dude, no attunement, make it sentient, add charges.
If we're making it sentient, I'd rather just make it an artifact.
To be fair to Zach, and as Hannah's pointed out, you really only need 1 level in fighter, so your only restriction is multi-classing.
Well, yeah.
Bro, that's true. Shit, Justin.
That's true for every other class restricted item. But a lot of those class restricted items buff things that encourage you to multi-class, or not multi-class, but have high levels in that class, where this doesn't really. Besides, even the action surge doesn't.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, because you get an action surge even if you don't have one.
Yeah.
I will say My counter to that is if you're a DM and you introduce this to your party because one of the players has 1 or 2 levels in fighter, shame on you.
What if instead of, because the restriction here, I mean, you probably have more flavor restrictions about why it's specifically fighter and not like barbarian.
Right.
But if we did want to open up, if your issue, because you said that your issue was how marshals get fucked, you could just say requires attunement by a character which does not have the spell casting or pack magic feature. They don't want to work for paladins and rangers.
Requirement restriction.
Yeah, it's sort of an inverse restriction, but
and then make it sentient. Give it charge.
Sentience would solve a lot of our problems.
I think sentience is fine on legendary. Like you can make something sentient and not an artifact.
If we had
no one's saying otherwise.
If we had sentient, and
I mean, we have like a personality and stuff.
I'm gonna be honest. On most items, sentience is a downside. Like,
yeah,
mechanically. Because then you gain the possibility of your sword disagreeing with you on something, which is just a terrible situation to be in.
Nah, dude, that Orion sword that I made was totally chill.
I didn't even realize that was sentient.
It was gonna be eventually.
Oh, okay.
The Netherall of Valinor that I gave Rhaegon it didn't have sentience per se, but it could disagree. On one of his abilities.
I felt that. Oh yeah, that's right. The fucking.
We should add sentient items to the list.
Honestly, that's a good idea. I'm gonna add that to the list right now. Actually,
I've been terrified of sentient items.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So charges and half movement, I think, is more than enough to make this legendary. I don't think we have to remove the requirement of being a fighter. But
you could play around with it if you wanted to, but
this is incredibly dangerous. If you even with the requirement, if a spellcaster gets a hold of this, a high level spellcaster, and once per short rest, they just get action surge for 1 level of fighter. Plus all of this other shit, which is great for spellcasters, like having advantage on all their physical saves. What else? Temporary hit points is great. Not being able to get charmed to frighten. I mean, all of them is great abilities, regardless of who you are. But I mean, some of these are especially good for spellcasters.
Like if this falls into this.
I mean, even with a bad save, the fact that it targets everyone in range,
yeah.
But again, if you, no, it's not a save; it's an attack roll.
Right? Yes, it's an attack roll. But even with a bad attack roll, an attack against everyone within 30 feet,
even still saying that, I still hold firmly that the DM should not give this out unless there is somebody that has taken a lot of levels of fighter, because I think that would
as soon as you introduce this, people are going to consider going fighter so that they can have this weapon.
If you want to restrict it to people who have many levels in fighter, instead of require attunement by a fighter, require attunement by a character with the Indomitable feature. That's a late enough feature in the fighter class that that's probably your main class, or you're at least doing a significantly fighter dedicated multi-class build. Because when do you get that? Level 7, I think? 9. Yeah, that's 9 levels in fighter. That's a big dedication.
That's max 6 level spells. You could also just put 9th level fighter,
Right, yeah. It requires requires attunement by a fighter of at least 7th level.
Requires attunement by a fighter of at least 9th level.
Sure.
Requires attunement by a fighter of at least. Why are we listing all of these?
I don't know. Listen. When I thought high level, I was thinking 14.
Or it's sentient, and then it's only people that are worthy.
Well, but the thing is, this is a legendary item, so you're probably giving this to them, let's say, around level 14 or 15.
Yeah.
What if your fighter took 3 levels in Paladin? What if your fighter took 3 levels in Barbarian? Like, do you want to say, no, the fighter can't use this because they're an 11-3 split? Is 11 levels of fighter not good enough for you?
I think 11 would be fine for me. I think
Okay. Then 11.
I think 11 is good.
You can put the requirement anywhere you want, man. I'm just saying that I think 7 levels is dedicated enough to the build.
Nah.
I think 11.
I think 10.
All right, 11.
I think
just pick a
sentient.
level. Yeah, make it 11th, and then there you go.
Yeah,
Problem
11.
solved.
11th, 7 charges, half movement speed to change stance.
There you go.
That would suck if your movement speed gets reduced to 0.
But I mean, it kind of makes flavorful sense that you won't be able to shift stances while your movement speed is 0.
Yeah, while you're grappled or restrained or paralyzed.
Yeah.
Because in theory, you could change stances while paralyzed the way it is, which is kind of odd.
Yeah.
Because it takes no action economy and no other costs, and it's just like, okay, I guess I'm now that I've been a hold person, I'll do a Dalanthean stance so I can make advantage on my wisdom saves.
And gee, they fucked me up last time, so I kind of want to get some. I kind of want to get a lot of health because they crit me 9 times.
Yeah. So good.
I'm real glad that it was a lot simpler than I thought on how to balance this. I was very
this was simpler than you thought?
Yes, I thought there was going to be a lot more tweaking. I thought there was going to be a lot more adjusting of like the stances. I thought there was going to be like some maybe we add some negatives to the stance or some shit. I was thinking that.
Oh, maybe the only change to a stance that I really had was the Goric one. Changing the maximum hit point thing is just kind of weird on that one.
The maximum hit point thing is super weird on that. I agree with Zach that adding a third mobility thing would make more sense, whether it's like an increase to your movement speed or...
Fuck it, your movement speed cannot be reduced.
I will say the Dalanthean stance has the same problem. Like, why is it regain half your max and also advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma? So you get a physical benefit and then also a mental benefit that aren't really related to each other. Like, I feel like the Dalanthean stance would have been
another
good
one
with the...
Oh, this is max.
Sorry. I was thinking, like, the hit points thing would make sense with the strength, dex, and con saves, but then I don't know where you put the knocked prone thing.
Honestly, anything referring to hit points or temporary hit points could probably just go away. Because they're not adding too much. Like, Avalish adds twice your con modifier and temporary... Well, that's per turn, so that's different.
Yeah, that one is per turn.
I think that one's fine.
That one's fine. Dalanthean and Goric, I don't think need the hit point riders. Having advantage on all your mental saves is already good enough.
Well, but the Jandial stance gives you advantage on all your physical saves and the knocked prone thing. Maybe
I was going to mention that.
Oh, you're saying that they should both be reduced to only advantage on the 3 saves?
Yeah, I think that's really fucking good to have advantage on.
Okay. I agree with you. I just think that they should be the same whichever way we go.
I've really wanted all that healing. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean,
it's strong, but it just seems out of place for where it is.
It feels really out of place. It feels out of place for a stance to heal you generally. The temporary hit points make sense, but like, I get the not lowering your max HP. I could see that as a stance, but healing in general just seems strange as a stance. You know?
Well, and also it was also you can choose to do it once per long rest. That was my big.
Well, that makes it even weirder to me because like if the stance isn't what's giving you, is it not the stance? Why doesn't the stance work every time? You know, like it's just a stance. Like what is? I don't know. It's just a little bit odd, but I think the stance is strong enough without the hit point rider. Just like the physical saves one, especially the physical saves, because that's 2 strong saves, and 2 saves that you're proficient in as a fighter.
Yeah.
So you're already pretty good at those.
My concern with that is then it breaks the mold of the stances.
What's the mold? 2 things for each?
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, but the thing is, some of them do 3 things, and some of them do like
Yeah. Also, having advantage on all strength, dexterity, and con saves can argue, or ability checks and saves can be argued as 6 things because it's 1 for each score and for 2 separate kinds of rolls.
Yeah.
Because for some magical items, just getting advantage on 1 save or just 1 ability check, like that's 1 ability, and then you're just expanding it further to, like, I don't know. I think those are both fine if they're just advantage on physical save and mental saves. And it makes flavorful sense, too, to have a stance for each of those that aren't,
Yeah, and if you wanted to add a healing stance, like, you would have to probably change one of them where you get a heal and it does something with, like, your AC or something like that. So, like, the stance is defending yourself while you healed.
I agree with Shawn that healing, like burst healing, is not appropriate for a stance. The temp HP one, like per turn, is probably fine, but I don't think that burst healing is appropriate for a stance.
It is a hard kind of like.
I will say
idea to imagine why.
It feels like it feels like you wanted 2 separate things for each stance, like 2 completely unrelated things for both, which I think is asking too much, especially since you made this with no charge. Like to just be able to stance
I
that
don't
covers
do charges.
Because you have a stance that's resistance to all elemental damage, but also you can steal wind strike, which those don't add together in my mind.
Yeah,
and then
agreed.
The Doric one doesn't add together. The Laziel one, I can understand with your rationale of it, like, oh, you get the crit range and because you're probably making the attack action again, sure. But then the prone on top of physical saves, I can see that because it's forcing a physical save.
But it does still feel kind of disconnected.
Yeah, and then the top one, like Hellmock, you can't be moved, also +2 to attack and damage. Maybe like a momentum thing you're going for, it feels like. I can kind of see that.
Honestly, the only one that feels 100% on is the Avalish stance. The temp HP and the Charm Frighten thing, those feel like they fit together. Maybe just because I'm already primed with Hero's Feast, but like...
It would fit even better if it was twice your Wisdom modifier, because you're a fighter, it's probably garbage, so...
Right, yeah.
But yeah, it feels like you wanted to have stances, but you didn't really want to have the person commit to, like, a payoff. Because the whole point of a stance is that you're hyper-focusing on one thing, and sometimes it's at the detriment of another thing. But you're kind of hitting 2 things at once with each stance, which is kind of strange.
Yeah, looking at them all more carefully now, I think they might need to be. I think you're right that they might need to be trained like the way you thought.
Damn it, I shouldn't have opened my mouth.
I mean, I think we had already kind of said that, like, these are kind of all over the place. It's just that we'd only really addressed the Gloric one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the fact that Galanthian and Jandial are just too much as is.
14 stances. And you divide them all in 2, and there you go.
Wait. Okay, you'll have 1 stance for each zodiac sign, and then 1 stance for every
phase of the moon.
For every phase of the moon, and then
if there's 2 moons at once, you can enter into 2 stances at once.
Yes. This is perfect. And then you die. There's just too many. There's just too many options, and you fucking die.
Yes, exactly what Hannah said. The Zodiac Killer.
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, that's an interesting idea I just thought of. So not
you
the
just
Zodiac
die.
No. So the phrase "they died" or "he died," I don't know, kick something around in my head creatively. But we talked about changing because to make Avalish not stand out as this strange outlier that has a reaction ability, you could just have it. You can enter a stance at either at the start of your turn, at the cost of half your movement, or as a reaction to being hit or failing a save. And
that's really cool.
Yeah, and that would cover that would cover the Avalish issue of like, why would I ever blah blah blah. But it also makes an interesting, flavorful choice for the rest of them. Because, like, for instance, the resistance to damage things, like, I can enter a reaction that gives me resistance to maybe the elemental part of this damage at the cost of one of charges.
It's like, I know that I just failed the dex save on this dragon's breath weapon. Let me enter the 4-wall stance. Like,
yeah.
I like that. That's pretty cool.
I like that, and that was a part of the original like concept that I had. But as I was going through this, I was like, I can't add a reaction to this because the idea
already
was
doing so much.
Well, the idea was that you are kind of preparing and anticipating for what is going to happen for the next turn.
But a reaction is anticipating. Yeah.
Yeah, the sword is kind of doing that for you. That's why you can do it as a reaction. That's why people want the sword. Because the sword is also paying attention to what's happening. And allowing you to react.
Because it's a sentient weapon.
Again, this was back when there was no charges.
Yes, we made it sentient!
We did it, Reddit.
I've been leaning on the sentient for a little bit. I just don't want to come up with a personality right now. I'm sorry.
It's whatever the DM gives it.
Not normally.
Generally, the stat block will at least give it an alignment and mental stats.
Fuck that. Whatever the DM gives it.
Or personality changes with each stance.
I think
that'd be fucking wild.
Oh my
do that, dude.
Okay, wait. Seven personalities and zodiac sign stances and moon phase stances.
You can only take the reaction if you have certain stances up. So, like, if you're in Dalanthian, you can only go to Avalish and Forwall.
Right. Okay. Wait. No.
How do I stop this?
The stance. The stances line up with the 7 schools of magic from 2nd edition, and you can only use your reaction to move to opposing schools, but you have to use your movement.
I can do this. I can serve you people. This was a mistake for you to give me this power, Shawn. I will start doing this.
Man.
Okay. I think adding charges, I think we should go through this off camera and kind of really fine-tooth comb like each of these stances, because yes, doesn't really look fine.
Maybe a different comb.
Because it's missing some.
Yeah, this is a cheap shitty comb, and my hair is very thick, so it breaks a lot.
I want to go through each of these stances off camera and figure out.
We hate them all. No, except Avalish. Avalish is cool.
We hate them all, except for you, Avalish.
I like Goric without the maximum hit points. I think that looks cool.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that all of them have, like, a cool thing in them. It's just that, like, Avalish is the only one that I'm like, yes, this makes cohesive sense on its own as is.
I will say that the action search thing does feel out of place when you think about, like, dropping some of the secondary abilities here. Because it's not a passive thing, and it's only once per short rest as well, so it's kind of a burst option on the stance again. But...
What if you just add that to the top paragraph?
Instead of making it a stance, just say once per short rest, you get a special action surge?
Maybe, yeah.
And then you can add that healing stance.
And then that makes it make even more sense for it to be specifically fighter.
And that makes it make even more sense for it to be a sentient sword.
Yes! Hold on. I do want to make sure... This is adding an additional action surge on top of the ones you get.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Fine. Yeah, in the book, you get 1.
Don't you get 2?
You get a second one at 17th level or 15th.
Nobody plays D&D that long.
Shut the fuck up! We literally just finished our first campaign.
The vast majority of campaigns do end before tier 4 choose. Some people willingly stop there because it's too crazy for them. So yes, they are cowards.
Yeah, I believe that the data says that like 50% of campaigns end by level 6, and another like 30% end by level 10.
Cowards, them all.
Hannah's idea: you play a campaign except all your characters are actually sentient weapons trying to sway their characters. So you're basically Zatch from Zatch Bell.
Yes, yeah.
Or a Zong Pakto.
Oh yeah. Wait, okay. We'll play a 5e Bleach game and
yes, let's do a Zanpakuto episode.
Lord,
that would actually be pretty dope.
Man,
I won't be there for that episode because I have no clue what the fuck is happening.
We can describe the basics.
I think that a Zanpakuto based like Bleach one shot could be really cool. Like
I'm gonna go play Gwent, guys. Is that okay? While you guys do that podcast,
we can do a Gwent episode, even though I know nothing about it.
Yeah, we'll do a Gwent episode.
Yeah,
and then
I don't know what Gwent is, but I'm down for that.
Then we'll do a Magic the Gathering episode, and we'll do a conlanging episode.
Gloomhaven episode.
Zach, what's the thing you like that we don't care about?
Gloomhaven. Well, people care about Gloomhaven.
Gloomhaven would be pretty wild.
We'll do a Halo episode.
Let's do an episode about Max.
I love Max. God, wait, can you show Max to the camera?
Yeah, can we get a max cam here today?
I know you just woke up.
Oh my god, I love that
Dude.
dog.
Dude, is he okay?
Yeah, he's fine. Look at him.
Dude,
He
are you
just woke up.
sure? His entire life looks like it's like torment and
I-
dread.
I will not stand for you talking about this dog that way, Justin.
You're right. You won't stand because you're sitting right now.
I'll beat your ass, Justin. I'll fucking
See,
I'll
Hannah
no,
loves
the fuck
Max,
you won't.
Justin.
No, the fuck you won't. Let's do this.
Why don't you love Max, Justin? Hannah loves Max. We
I
all
do love Max. I do love Max. I just feel bad that we as a species have created this type of a dog.
If I ever stream, that's one thing that I want is a dedicated max cam.
fuck yeah.
Just
But
shred
yeah,
him
it's not like
instead.
he's gonna go anywhere. He's just gonna lay in his bed the entire time.
He would just be on his bed. That's what he does. People will literally just watch him sleep. So.
All right. I think
People
All right.
watch ducks eat food, bro.
Great work, everybody. What
Yeah.
what are we
Next week we're doing spells about ducks.
No,
Yes,
it
spells
spells
about-
that don't do damage or heal.
Yeah, ducks for short.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is this is gonna be the end of this episode. Next week, Wednesday, 7 p.m. EST, because that's the only ES or the only time for.
Wait, this is EDT.
Oh,
my
EDT?
God.
Yeah, they're getting rid of standard time and keeping daylight time.
This is bullshit. Is this what it's like getting old? I don't like change. It needs to stay EST.
What?
It's
What do you
probably
mean?
fine.
Your entire life, it's been half of both. What do you mean stay EST?
No one's ever told me this.
Listen, Bianca
What?
Belair
You practice
is
daylight
the
saving time.
EST, okay?
I practiced daylight savings times, but I never realized that was like a thing that changed the fucking thing. I thought it still was just EST, but now you're in daylight savings time.
Okay,
I'm
what did you
confused about
think?
what your outrage is about.
What did you think the S stood for, man?
Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah.
Right, standard daylight.
Hold on, wait, but didn't you just say EDT?
Yeah, we're in EDT now, right? Or
And which
wait,
one are we staying
wait,
in the future?
no, we just switched to
We just
Eastern
switched to
Daylight
EDT,
Time.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying
And then the Congress was like, "Hey, this is stupid, and we shouldn't do this again. We should stay on Daylight Time because that's the one that most people like better because it means that there's like sunlight in the evenings, but it does mean that you get to drive to work in pitch black darkness now. So
I
you
love
know,
that.
I've never heard of
I don't like that.
I've
I don't
never
like that.
I've never heard of like EDT. That's the thing.
It's an energy company.
No,
that's
that's
DTE.
DTE.
So next week we're doing spells.
Yeah, next
Spells.
week we're doing spells that
About
are
time and ducks.
about
This-
not about damage or healing. At least as primary focuses, they can do damage and healing, but the primary focus should be other effects. Like
No damage, no healing. I just wanted not rolling dice was the main thing. No damage, no healing.
Okay, so no rolling dice from the player.
Yeah.
Besides maybe an attack roll,
Or like a chart if you have it on there. Whatever.
a chart. Wait, what?
like a random effect, like for confusion.
yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Or like the Fizbin spell that you hate.
Fucking hell!
Yeah.
Nathair's Mischief or whatever the fuck it's
Yeah.
called. God damn, I hate that
Okay,
spell.
so then no damage whatsoever.
Yes,
at
it was
least
no
not-
damage,
At
no
least
healing.
I rolled. Because no.
Sure.
Polymorph, but only into ducks. Level 3.
Duckamore.
Spiritual duck.
Alright.
Summon
So that's
duck.
what we're doing. That's what we're doing next week. And then the week after, we
Wall
might do
of
something
ducks.
else.
We might
we
might
might,
do
who knows?
Any,
we don't
any
do
last
spells
words before we
again.
wrap up, guys? We're a little insane right now.
We're very insane right now. Today's word of the day is weft. Usually used in the phrase weave and weft. When you're turning threads into like a fabric, like a two-dimensional fabric, the weave goes like one direction, but the weft runs across it in a zigzag pattern to
So
turn it into fabric.
Gotcha. It goes east to west. Gotcha.
Yes, it goes east to weft, yeah. Weft, synonym for weft is woof.
Wolf.
My word of the day is haunch.
Haunch!
The human hip or fleshy hindquarter of an animal, ESP a horse or similar quadruped. I don't know. Leg and loin of an animal.
My word of the day is four-wall, which is a very tasteless wall you might find in a fucked up rabbi's home.
What the fuck?
What's your word of the day,
What
Justin?
about you, Justin?
Water.
Water.
Drink
Same thing
water,
it
guys.
always is.
Same thing it always is. What do you take me for?
Duck.
Some non-water
Take you
some
for a duck.
non-water drinking Neanderthal?
I have to come up with some duck spell next week.
All right, we're deteriorating. All right, Hannah asked if we had to kill one of the words. Probably four-wall, because that image is horrifying. All right.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't think you understood my joke. And the phrase.
That's on you. Say the words.
Say the line, Bart.
Wall.
Don't forget a
wait,
duck
no, not wall.
and never forget a duck.
All ducks which have been lost must be found, and all ducks found must be remembered. See you next.